All right, well, look, thank you for coming along. And can I just start with some remarks about the passing of the former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Jim Bolger. Jim Bolger was somebody who had a deep sense for the importance of belonging. He felt a real responsibility for bringing New Zealand into the modern world, and he's certainly done that in the way that his government bedded in and continued economic reforms that have led to the modern New Zealand that we know today. And it's easy to forget from today the courage required to initiate the treaty settlements that his government did in the early 1990s. He leaves behind a legacy which has many aspects and many footprints on New Zealand as we know it today, and we are so grateful to him, Joan and his extended family for the many sacrifices that I'm sure and I know as a politician that they would have all had to have made for his public service, without which New Zealand would not be the country that it is today. I'm aware that Parliament will adjourn after a debate later today, and we certainly considered cancelling the release of this policy and this event today. However, for a number of reasons we thought it was important to carry on, and so we'll be making a bit of an announcement and cutting these cakes, which I'm sure will be enjoyed by all who attend. Just to set a bit of the background of this, there's nothing more Kiwi than the tradition of bringing a plate, selling a cake to raise money for a cause, or selling a cake to your friends, or having one at a farmer's market that's been based in your home. And until 11 years ago, there was no regulation, there was no restriction around doing this, until the government of the time applied food safety standards even to people who are baking and decorating cakes in their homes. This may not be the number one issue in New Zealand today, but it certainly captures the way that the regulatory state has invaded just about every aspect of life, even when it's not welcome and not needed for any public purpose. People who bake cakes at home are reliant on their relationships with the people they're selling to. They're very cautious about what they do, and they have every incentive to get it right. There is no strong basis for regulation and restrictions. Since we opened the red tape tip line at the Ministry for Regulation, we've actually been inundated with complaints. We've had 24 complaints specifically about the regulations on home-based cake makers, and I thought I would just read out one of them. The price to run a home baking business costs over $1,000 a year in fees just to be registered under Auckland Council. That makes it difficult to earn an income with small orders, especially in the recession. I ended up closing down my business after 2 years. I was lucky I closed down before they increased the price with adding extra fees. Small home businesses don't and can't produce as much product as a shop, bakery or cafe. A food plan is 100% needed, but the extra cost in a 20-minute audit for around $800 every 12 to 18 months makes it so hard to make a living and upscale small home-based businesses. So we've responded to this much in the same way as we responded to complaints that we had about garden sheds. These are the kinds of rules that just drive people mad for absolutely no benefit, and every time we remove one of them, New Zealand becomes just a slightly freer and more joyful place for people to get on and live their lives. So we took this problem to the Minister for Food Safety, Andrew Hoggard, and Andrew's family. As you can see, cake baking is a very, very serious enterprise, and we're very grateful to this cake from Andrew's wife Audra, and we look forward to hearing a little bit more from Andrew as the Minister for Food Safety about how they're going to respond to this challenge.
Yeah, well, obviously we'll basically remove all this over-the-top regulation that is in place, and it'll be a simple case of a little bit of paperwork at the start, and then that's it, unless there's issues. Then there'll be follow-up. Otherwise, no problems, carry on, get on with your business. This is really sort of the first cab off the rank of a range of work program that we've got going on in food safety. Earlier in the year I went and met with a range of food businesses, from small at-home businesses to medium-sized businesses to larger businesses, and the industry representation for a number of them. And obviously proportionate risk to proportionate business size was one of the examples that came up, and so it's not just going to be cake makers. As I said, this is the first one we've looked at. There are other sort of home businesses we'll be looking at in terms of what actual risks are there, what are the rules and costs we can remove from them to enable them to do this. But also, same applies to really small businesses as well that are in not a home-based, but small companies that are around the place, just enabling them to move forward and grow. It feels like at times our system is based on everyone's Fonterra-sized, and it actually stops companies that could be Fonterra-sized getting to Fonterra-size. So trying to make it more risk-based and proportionate. And also other things that we're going to be looking at, labelling rules. I'll be taking a paper to Food Safety Australia New Zealand next meeting around starting the conversation around trying to ease up on, or get with the new technology around QR codes, and obviously that'll feed into the regulatory review that'll be happening. And so there's a whole range of, I think we've got about 16 items that we're going to be looking into around just how to make life easier for our food businesses, because they certainly are struggling out there at the moment, and we want to make things simpler and easier. And you know, end of the day, the simple thing is any food business, they want repeat customers, and so their food needs to be safe, it needs to be good, and that way they get repeat customers. They've already got that motivation in place. We don't need to beat them down too much from government.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, there'll still be rules and guidelines around this. What we're getting rid of is the need for expensive council audits and inspections. There was one here who said that it took 30 minutes. As a small cake business, we face huge amounts of regulation and red tape. Despite being lowest risk on the food scale, we still pay for licences, registrations and levies. Our latest inspection took 30 minutes, but is billed in 4-hour slots, so you can see how someone ends up paying hundreds of dollars for someone basically to come and have a look at their kitchen. They still need a food safety plan, as was suggested by one of the submitters, but we're not going to have councils up and down the country going into people's homes charging them hundreds, even thousands of dollars to check it. There's still a need to be able to recall food if there was a problem, perhaps with an ingredient, but of course people are working in small networks where they generally know who they're selling to. So this is not, you know, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's making proportionate, sensible regulation so that people can be safe, but also actually be in the game in the first place, because they haven't been driven out of business by being overburdened. Right, happy to take any questions, or would you rather go straight to the cake?
One of the, in the examples there, a lot of it's kind of local government, you know, rules or council. How confident are you that the changes that you're proposing will you need to do anything further to change local government rules, or will you have to tell councils that they're going to have to make changes, or what's the story there? So
in terms of this particular change, there won't need to be inspections. So what David was talking about there was the council inspection. That won't need to occur, so they won't have that cost. But that was one item that did come up from the hospitality sector as I was going around talking to them, was that there was a great deal of differences around the country in terms of how those inspections were done and the rigour. Some places were over the top, some were sort of, you know, more in line, and so there's another piece of work going to look at how can we get a better standardisation across the country. Yeah, so I stand to be corrected by the Minister, but as I understand it, it's MPI guidelines that are driving these council selections. By changing the MPI guidelines, you no longer need the council inspections. I just make the point, it's certainly true that local government is inconsistent. Certainly yesterday with the hospitality review we launched, the key issue is that the councils are so inconsistent and often so pedantic in their enforcement. And people say, well, what are you going to do about the councils? Well, there are things that can be done about the councils, particularly at council level. But the key thing we can do from central government is not introduce so many Byzantine rules that they then go off and have a million permutations of enforcement that drive people mad. This is a good example of that, and there'll be a lot more in the hospo review.
Have you got any sense that sort of food checks are generally a big profit centre for local councils? I mean, I appreciate probably cake checks aren't going to be a big deal, but I mean, if we see a sort of change in regulation more generally around food safety checks and so on, is that going to have an impact on their finances?
We don't have information because the councils will know that, but you could make a couple of speculations. One, in the example of you charge out 4 hours but it only took half an hour, I guess the council probably made a bit of money off that person, more than it cost them. On the other hand, I was at a local government New Zealand conference recently where Nick Smith was just absolutely delighted that we've got rid of the inspections for hairdressers, because he, in his view, at Nelson Council at least, they're actually losing money. And I suspect it'll differ from council to council. So there'll be some councils where the poor punter getting inspected is actually subsidising everyone else. There'll be other councils where they haven't put the fees up and the council is actually losing money on the inspections and therefore being subsidised by ratepayers or some other revenue stream for the council.
Can you explain how much easier it will be for people who want to start up a cake business, for example? Say this is a hypothetical, I'm not about to do it, but if I quit journalism and go and start a boutique cake company, how is it going to be easier under the new rules than under the current ones?
Well, you're not going to need that inspection every year. Look, David's talked about those costs. Basically, you'll need to have a safety plan, and then understand how to make cakes for a start would probably be a good starting point. And then, it's and the recall ability. And so, if there's a problem, that you're able to contact your customers. So it's just about having sensible systems in place.
Will I be able to use like my home kitchen, or
Yes.
I have to have a separate container?
No, this is for home kitchens. Yeah.
So it's a safety plan, like, wipe down the bench before we get started, flowers.
Yeah, critical control points. So I'm not sure what they are with cakes. You'd have to ask my wife for that one. But obviously, there's key things for baking to make sure that they don't go wrong, and you just have to document what that is and have your system in place and prove, that you know what you're doing, and then you're away laughing effectively.
So go online, do that once. Someone comes in for an initial inspection, and that's it, or no inspection at all?
Yeah.
No inspections.
Okay.
I think what Andrew meant to say is that he's actually a diligent sous chef in the kitchen in the Hoggard household, and he's got a lot of knowledge, but he's too modest to reveal it here.
Can I just ask, Minister, how much you consulted your wife on this policy before going?
Not a lot, actually, none at all. No, she doesn't. So at the moment, you had to be registered if you did over 10. So she's under 10 usually. Yeah.
Over 10, just 10 cakes?
Yeah, over 10 cakes, you have to be registered. Yes, a year. And so that's what we're removing this for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if she had have done 11 cakes, then she would have had to go and do registration, although I seriously doubt she would have. But
she'd be fined as well if they caught it.
Well,
not unless I wanted a divorce.
The main problem that Audrey's faced as a small business is that there's actually quite a severe tax on what she produces. She loses a high proportion of what she produces before it gets out of the household, and that's actually been one of the things that's held her back. So while we're removing red tape, that's one tax and impediment to her business that we are not able to remove.
So there's not the safety inspection. Is there kind of financial auditing rules changing as well, or is that no?
Well, I mean, you would be seen as running a small business. So if you were a carpenter and you were making chairs in your garage, I guess you'd have to look at what the tax and accounting rules were for that as well. But we're not concerned with that here today.
So no AML rules or anything like that?
Look, we hope so. I mean, if you did want to launder money for international terrorism, I suspect a cake business wouldn't be the place to start. But you never know.
What kind of cakes are they, and
chocolate.
And how long did they take to make?
About, I think she baked it on one day, did the decoration all the rest the next day.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about this other cake.
They're very high quality cakes, as you're about to see.
What's the icing? Is it a mascarpone icing? Is it?
I think he's actually crossed. He's got a conflict of interest between his journalistic interest and his attempts to gain trade secrets for his upcoming business.
I think there's some sort of.
Would you see yourself
pay a
more
lot of
the
attention.
baking or the decorating in Luke?
Oh, both.
Oh, mate, he's a full service.
Both of them.
Fair enough. Well, I tell you what, we might start cutting the red tape.